All right. So screen. Okay. I screwed up the last video, so hopefully this one goes better. Okay, so muscles. Um, so okay, so muscles. The four properties that all muscles must have. One is that it contracts. Okay, so and it's excitable. So excitement means actually when I signal it using electricity. So when I run electric current into the muscle will contract. Okay. Okay. So the other thing is extensibility and elasticity. So I can stretch muscles too. So if I have a normal muscle and I pull on it, it will stretch. Okay. And that stretch won't damage the muscle at all. So when I let go, it will bounce back and be back to normal, and that's elasticity. Okay, so it can actually stretch about 25% of the length of the muscle before it starts to tear. Okay, okay. So myo, mys, sarco, these are terms that you'll hear over and over again when we're talking about muscle. Okay. Okay. The function of skeletal muscle, they produce movement, they open the body, close body passageways, they help maintain posture, okay, and stabilize joints, okay, and last but not least, heat generation, okay, they generate a lot of heat when you contract muscles. Okay, so most of what we'll talk about is skeletal muscle. Okay, skeletal muscle makes up about 40% of body weight. Okay, in men it's like 42, and females like 36. Obviously, it differs from people. In me, it's like 2. Okay. Skeletal muscle is striated. Cardiac muscle is striated. Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle is involuntary. Okay, so I can't control how fast they go. Okay. Okay. So each muscle is a unique organ. Okay, it consists of muscle tissue, but it also contains connective tissue, blood vessels that supply the muscle, and nerves that stimulate the muscle. Okay, so here is a muscle, okay, your typical muscle. Okay, so what muscles actually are, okay, an individual muscle cell is called a muscle fiber. Okay, a muscle fiber is wrapped around by a connective tissue lining called the endomysium. A bunch of muscle fibers put together is a fascicle. Okay, a fascicle is a bundle of sticks. Okay, or a fasces is a bundle of sticks. So fascicle is a bundle of little sticks. Okay, so this whole thing is a fascicle. A fascicle is wrapped around by another layer called the perimysium. Okay, many fascicles put together make a muscle, and then the muscle is surrounded by a layer called the epimysium. Okay, so I'm gonna go backwards. An epimysium surrounds a muscle. Okay, individual units of the muscle are called a fascicle. A fascicle is wrapped around by a perimysium. Okay, inside the fascicle are going to be individual muscle fibers. The individual muscle fibers are surrounded by an endomysium. Okay, so I wouldn't go over this many times if this wasn't on the test, right? So make sure you understand that. Okay. Okay. Um, Nerves. Okay, and blood vessels. So each skeletal muscle is surrounded by branches of one nerve, one artery, and one or more veins. Okay. The smallest branch of the nerve actually serves individual muscle fibers. So I can contract one muscle fiber. Okay. All right. So origin and insertion. Okay. When I move, okay, I move one bone against another bone. Okay. So usually muscles are controlled by origin and insertion, the two attachment points. Okay. And they'll always be on different bones. Okay. One bone will move, the other bone will remain fixed. So you see this? Okay. Here I can flex my finger. When I flex my finger, what am I flexing? Okay. This. Okay. The proximal phalange is moving. The metacarpal is not. So the insertion is going to be the proximal phalange. The origin will be the metacarpal. Okay. So let me give you another example. Here is the arm. So I'm flexing here my forearm. Okay. So this muscle is called the brachialis. Okay. When I flex my forearm, the humerus stays and the ulnar comes closer to the humerus. So the origin, okay, is the humerus, the insertion is the ulnar. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? Hopefully it does. We'll go over many examples of this. Okay. All right. So let's go over the skeletal muscle fiber. Okay. The skeletal muscle fibers are long and cylindrical, so they look like this. Okay. So the muscle fiber is made out of these things right here. These are called myofibrils. Okay. A myofibril is about 80% of the entire muscle fiber is made of myofibrils. Okay, and they come in repeating units. So you can see that here. Okay, you see a dark band, and then you see a light band, dark band, light band. That's what forms the striations. Okay, and you can see that here: dark band, light band, dark band, light band. Okay, the dark band is the A band, the light band is the I band. Okay, when you shine light at muscle, the dark band absorbs the light. The light band allows the light to pass through. So dark band, light band. Okay, I'll explain why in a couple of slides. Okay, all right. So the myofibril is made out of repeating segments called sarcomeres. Okay, when you exercise, okay, when you're putting on muscle, what you're building is sarcomeres. Okay. Okay. So a basic unit of contraction is a sarcomere. So let me show you what the sarcomeres actually mean. Okay. So here I'm showing you a myofibril, and now I can see more detail. Okay. You can see the A band in red right here. Okay. And the I band is the part that is in between the A bands. Okay. So now I'm gonna blow up a sarcomere. Okay, hold on. Okay. So this right here in the middle is the thick filament. The other name for thick filament is the A band. Okay. Okay. Hold on 1 second. The blue line right there, okay, is the thin filament or the actin filament. Okay. All right. So now the actin filament attaches to this thing right here. That is a Z disc. Okay. A sarcomere runs from Z disk to Z disk. A sarcomere runs from Z disk to Z disk. Okay? Okay, here in the middle is the M line. The myosin filament attaches to the M line. Okay? Hold on 1 second. All right, so share screen. Okay. Okay, Titanium is a spring-like molecule that holds the whole system in place and prevents these things from overstretching. Okay, so go over what A band and I band are. Okay, so the A band, you can see, matches exactly with the myosin filament. Okay, the I band is where the myofilament isn't. Okay, I'm trying to put this in words. Okay, the A band is where the myosin filament is. The myosin filament is so thick that it blocks light. So it's the A band. Where the myosin filament isn't, light can go through very easily. So I band. Okay. All right, the last term I didn't mention is this H zone. The H zone is slightly outside the M line. You see where the blue line ends, okay, and the blue line starts here. In between, there's a bigger zone called the H zone, okay? All right. So let's talk about contractions, okay? There are two major types of contractions, a concentric contraction and an eccentric contraction, okay? So when I'm doing a concentric contraction, let me show you. Okay. Okay, so dumbbell. So as I'm shortening here, okay, so when I shorten my muscle here, I'm moving the bell, okay, this is a concentric contraction. When I'm slowly putting it down, okay, my arm is working as a brake, so I'm not dropping it, I'm just putting it down slowly. My muscles are still doing work, they're slowly lengthening, okay? That is an eccentric contraction, okay? Okay. All right, back to, okay, so now let's take a closer look at what's happening here. Okay, so here's two pictures that I really want you to understand, okay? This is a fully relaxed sarcomere, this is a fully contracted sarcomere, okay? Okay. All right, so here, okay? So if you look at these two pictures, look at what happened. So let's just look at the pictures, okay, and see what happens. Okay, so you see the white area here has shrunken a lot. Remember, white area is the I band, okay? And so the I band shrinks, okay? The Z discs are now much closer together than they were. So the Z discs actually come closer, okay? The H zone in the middle completely disappears. See how there's like this lighter zone right here, and here there's that completely disappears, okay? So during a muscle contraction, what happens is the myosin right here grabs onto the actin and pulls it toward the center. It pulls it toward the M line, okay? When it fully contracts, the actin filament hits the M line and there's no more H zone. So there's no more H zone here, okay? The I bands get smaller, the Z discs come closer together. Okay. All right. Hopefully you understand all that. Okay. So. Okay. Second. Okay. Blah blah blah. Okay. So let's go into more detail. Okay. So here is the myosin. Here's the actin. Okay. The actin actually has something around it that protects it. Okay. Those are the regulatory proteins, tropomyosin and troponin. Okay. Do you see how these actin filaments have these little indentations right there? The little indentations are where the myosin head will actually grab onto. But do you see in this picture right here, the little indentations are actually blocked by that yellow string? Okay, so normally before you get the signal to contract, the yellow string is in the way. So the myosin can't grab onto the actin. Okay? Okay. So now let's go back to where we were talking about earlier, and I'll explain what's going on. Okay. So here is a better view of what's going on. Okay. You have these tubes, the blue stuff, okay, that actually stores calcium. Okay, that's why you need calcium for muscle contractions. Okay, so these things, okay, will release calcium. Okay, when I have a contraction, I release calcium. That calcium okay, so actually, let me move this. So I have a nerve cell here. That nerve cell will release something called acetylcholine. Okay, the acetylcholine will signal my muscles to contract. What actually happens is the acetylcholine will cause the calcium to be released into the muscle. Okay, once the calcium is released into the muscle, so calcium is released into the muscle, the calcium will bind to the troponin. Okay, once the calcium binds to the troponin, the tropomyosin actually gets pulled out of the way. And so now you can see the heads are exposed. The heads of the actin are exposed. And when the heads of the actin are exposed, the myosin can actually contract. Okay? So the nervous system sends a signal. Okay? The signal results in acetylcholine release. Acetylcholine causes calcium inside the muscle to be released. The calcium inside the muscle will attach to the troponin, and that will allow the myosin to grab onto the actin. Okay? Okay. You probably want to go over that at least a couple of times. Okay? All right. So one more picture that I want you guys to really understand is this one. Okay? So let me explain all the little details here. Okay? So this is a nerve. Okay? The signal is coming down the axon right here. This right here, okay, is called the axon terminal or the terminal gluton. Okay, the terminal gluton ends right before the muscle begins. These two things do not actually touch each other. they leave a little hole. That little hole is called a synaptic cleft. Okay? The neurotransmitter is released into the cleft. Okay? That neurotransmitter released into the cleft will bind to the receptors on the other side, on the muscle side. Okay? That stimulates one single muscle contraction and only one. Okay? Because as soon as the acetylcholine is released, it is destroyed right away. Okay? Or else you just get contraction after contraction after contraction. And that doesn't work. Okay? You need contraction, relax, contract, relax, contract, relax. Okay? You don't want a muscle to keep contracting. Okay? So as soon as you release the neurotransmitters, you allow for one contraction, and then you destroy all the neurotransmitters, and then you have to release neurotransmitters again to get a second contraction. Okay? This is actually critically important in muscle biology. As one of the things I can do is stop acetylcholine here. Okay? I constantly release acetylcholine to constantly bind. If I do that, the muscles will constantly contract and you will die. Okay? That is actually how cobra venom actually works. Okay? That's actually how tetrodotoxin works too. Okay? If I prevent the acetylcholine from binding, I relax the muscle. Okay? That's how succinylcholine works. Succinylcholine is a drug they give you right before surgery, and there's a drug they give you, and they tell you to count back to 100, and you get to about 97 before you wake up from the surgery. That succinylcholine, it relaxes all your muscles. Okay. All right. So next thing I want to focus on is the motor unit. Okay, the motor unit is, by definition, one motor neuron and all the muscle fibers it controls. Okay. The motor unit, okay, is one motor neuron. So we can control one motor neuron, and we can control all the muscle fibers it supplies. Okay, there are small motor units and there are large motor units. Okay, the smaller number means finer control. The smallest number of motor units we have in our body is actually our fingers. Okay, we have a lot of neurons each that control our fingers. Each neuron controls very few muscle fibers in the fingers, and that gives us a lot of fine motor control. The bigger motor units have hundreds of muscle fibers, and those are going to be the big, strong muscles. Okay, the muscles in our back and thighs, those are going to be big, huge motor units that control a lot of power. Okay. Okay. So, let me explain this another way. One of the differences between us and our closest relative, chimpanzees, is the number of motor units. Okay. Chimps have less motor units than humans when it comes to the muscles. Okay. So chimps I can put an 80-pound chimp against a 200-pound guy and bet all my money on the chimp to win easily. Okay, the chimp has bigger motor units, so they have much more power, which is why they can swing around in trees all day and not get tired. Okay, but they're not going to have the dexterity to do the fine motor skills that we have. So chimps not doing neurosurgery. Okay? Okay. The last concept I want to talk about, I think, is the oxidative fibers and glycolytic fibers. Okay? Oxidative fibers use oxygen. Glycolytic fibers use glycolysis, which does not require oxygen, so they don't use oxygen. So they produce ATP anaerobically. Okay? So oxidative fibers. Okay. So I want you to know the slow oxidative fibers and the fast glycolytic fibers. Okay? You don't have to know the intermediate fibers. Okay. So I like to explain this in terms of chicken. Okay? If you go to KFC or Church's or Popeyes or a Pollo Loco, you can get two types of chicken: dark meat and white meat. Okay? Slow oxidative fibers are going to be the dark meat. Okay? There will be darker. The red color is due to abundant myoglobin. Okay? They have more blood vessels. They have more mitochondria. This is why when you cook them, there's more blood, so they turn browner, so they're darker. They have more blood vessels, so they're juicier. Okay? Okay. These muscles contract slowly, and they're resistant to fatigue because they bring in large amounts of oxygen. Okay? So they don't tire out. Where do you find this on chicken? The thighs and the legs, right? The drumsticks. Okay? The reason why is because these are the muscles that the chicken uses all the time. They walk around all day, right? So they need resistant to fatigue muscles in their legs. Okay? The fast glycolytic fibers, okay, have little myoglobin, very few mitochondria. They're going to contract more rapidly and more powerfully. Okay? But they tire much more quickly. Okay? They contract about 5 times faster, which is a lot. Okay? But they tire out much faster as well. Okay? This is in the breast and wings of chicken. Chickens don't fly. Okay? And therefore, because they don't fly, they don't need the slow oxidative fibers in their wings. So they have bigger, fast glycolytic fibers. That's why the breast meat is drier. Okay? There's less fat because there's less blood vessels and stuff running through it. Okay? They generate more power. Okay? So different types of people have different amounts of slow oxidative fibers and fast glycolytic fibers. Okay? We can actually train to increase either one, but most people have a ratio, and that ratio is has genetic determinants to it. Okay? So some people will be better at different sports. Okay? The slow oxidative fiber people, these are going to be the marathon runners. Okay? So they can go for mile after mile after mile after mile. Slow oxidative fibers. Okay? These are going to be the sprinters. Okay? Or the power lifters. Okay? So fast, very powerful, tire very quickly. Okay? So I mentioned Usain Bolt a couple of times. I know he's retired, but I'm old. Okay. He would have a lot of fast glycolytic fibers. Okay? So, 200 meters, you can go very quickly and rest in 10 seconds. Okay? Power lifters. Okay? You also need fast glycolytic fibers. Soccer players and basketball players, slow oxidative fibers. Okay? All right. So, muscle tissue. Okay. Blah. I think we'll skip the rest of this slide. Okay. Okay. I do want to mention sarcopenia because that is a big thing. Okay. a lot of people after they get old stop lifting weights. Okay, and when you stop lifting weights, your muscles atrophy, and so you see a lot of people who have massive amounts of decreased muscular strength. Okay, and that is called sarcopenia. The consequences of sarcopenia is a loss of physical independence. Okay, if you can't walk around, you lose the ability to do that. Okay, however, the worst thing about sarcopenia is that it's a vicious cycle. You don't feel as much energy before, you stop exercising, you lose muscle, you can't do as much as before, and then the cycle continues and continues and continues. Okay, which is why to combat this, they're encouraging even elderly patients to weight lift. Okay, weight bearing exercises. Okay, all right, that ends my spiel. Hopefully this time worked better than last time.